Download the podcast at KCAAradio.com.
This is KCAA.
All right. Good morning, good morning, good morning. And that may just be a theme song, but boy, I tell you, that's the theme of life. You either choose to be the winner or you choose to let others decide who the winner is. And I didn't grow up waiting to be approved of by people who I already knew in the first place, disapproved. And how do you tell when people don't like you, disapprove of you? How can you tell? It feels funny. It doesn't feel good. It's like trying to disguise orange juice or disguise castor oil with orange juice. The intentions might be good, but the feeling isn't good. There's people out here trying to disguise the true aspects of life. They're being supported by all types of alternative intelligence. We've had that for a long time, though. Alternatives. Access to false information, access to the devil. Same time you got access to God. There's as many people acting devilish as there are people attempting to act godly. What do we do about those things? We've been discussing the potential of always of both sides. If you didn't know what a left hand was, you wouldn't have any idea why they would call a right hand a right hand. If you didn't understand and see that there was nighttime, daytime would not make any sense to you. So we need these opposites to challenge us to come forward to be, now we can say, oh, the opposites are great. God made them all, and he did, but he did that so you could demonstrate your intellect by the choices you make. Do you choose the truth or do you wallow in the lie? Now, we don't have to go very far in our lives to make that determination. Are you a liar or are you, do you lie to yourself? I'm going to lose this. We get a lot of I'm gonna-us. But in the midst of all of the I'm gonnas, the good intentions that don't make it, the false flags, the barriers that are put up by just haters and people in general who don't like you, policymakers who don't like you, and I can get specific. Should I get specific? Yeah. Okay, let's get specific. Here in America, we have an opportunity to, they didn't recruit Africans to come to America. They didn't go over and say, hey, we got this great big opportunity going on over there, and you go over here and, we're gonna hang your head in shame and adulation of a few false premises. And, maybe in 300-400 years, 500 years, you might, you're going to. But right now, no, they didn't even go over and explain that. They just went over and ripped babies out of their mouth. Took the baby. They didn't rip the baby out. Some of the mamas were smart enough to do that on the Middle Passage, coming from Africa, too. I've even got a wondering if all them babies that were thrown in the ocean, did we actually ever create maybe a underwater population? I don't know. Thought about it when I saw the Wakanda series, Point is that the possibilities are there. And we've always got fences. We always have blockers, haters, things that resist us. And despite the 400 years of terrorism, well, that would make it sound like it was over. Okay, in the midst of the concrete mentality of the world that wants to or has taken advantage of the labors and the intents and the soulful connection or the universal connection of black folk. Kind of like a flower growing up out of that cement. And I'll have to say, from what we learn and what we know is that no matter how hard it is, that little piece of grass has always been able to demonstrate itself somewhere. And that doesn't change the fact that we know that it's unfair. We know that it's depressing, and oppressive, but it's also a canvas on which we are able to describe our greatness. I guess the first time I heard it said and done was by a musician, Sunrise, on one of his album covers, where he not only thanked his friends, he thanked his enemies because, as he put it, they had helped him demonstrate his strength. So, Black History Month, Women's History Month, isn't that interesting? February for black folk in general, and Women's History Month for women in general. Why do you need a history month in a situation like that? I guess because the people who were writing the history kept writing it his story. Well, part of his story is the weakness of the plot line. The plot line is that we are not suckers. We are not going to go away. We are not going to disappear. We are not going to adhere to his lack of imagination. We're going to make this thing work. So we have education systems under threat throughout the, and you know how I feel about people being educated. To deny a person's education is to deny you and me access to the improvement that they can bring. And it puts us at risk for the foolish things that they may do because of their lack of intellect and education. So we want to educate everybody, but no, that's not the case. Education has a description just like everything else. A definition of what we really mean. Our school districts across the country have been the site where we describe and define education in those local areas. But we find that, if they get oriented correctly, if it's like a tree, if you plant that sucker correctly and put a little stick or something on it so it'll grow straight, unless you want it to grow in curves, which you can make that happen too. The basis upon which we operate our morality, our integrity, is all based on a set of facts. And facts are things that happen, that we know happen. But there's some folks who want to deny the facts, and they want to blame. Check this out. They want to blame black culture for telling the story of white culture that was based on denying the existence of Native American culture, Chinese culture, black culture, on and on and on. Now, I'm not knocking white people for that. Here we are. We're all cheering and hoping that one day we can find this other planet. Now, what are we going to do if we find another planet? Are we going to go up there and teach those people how to, no. Where did we ever go? Where we found people who were weaker, find people who had less opportunity. Did we go and give them that? No, we gave them an opportunity to watch us grow as individuals. Don't make me mad and have to tell you where it is. Don't get ignorant. Don't pretend you didn't know. Oh, that is right. That's what this is all about. There's folks who want to pretend they don't know. I have my great friend, retired professor, Dr. Homer Fleetwood, and his wonderful wife, Marissa. Homer is retired, but he ain't retired. You'll see that when I get him online. And Marissa is currently teaching middle school at their hometown in Florida. I'm not going to say which the hometown is because I hope she speaks hot enough that we need to kind of protect her a little bit. I don't think we have to disguise her voice, but I know we won't be able to disguise anybody's intent conversation about fairness. So, when we talk about education, we bring up the state of Florida. That's a good place to start because critical race theory is something they definitely think they've got defined and don't want any parts of it. And they certainly are happy to talk to you about woke as long as they don't have to talk to you about the definition of woke. I don't know. What is woke? I heard my friend Al Sharpton say, well, let me ask you this. Would you rather be woke or sleep? This is Empire Talks Back. I'm Wallace Allen. We'll be right back after this short break to try to wake up a few folks who are trying to walk in their sleep. I know they're trying to walk in their sleep because they keep bumping into things. We'll be right back.
Publish your legal notice in West Side Story newspaper. For the best service and the best rates, call 909-384-8131. Publishing legal notices in the city and county of San Bernardino since 1990. West Side Story provides friendly expert service. Call 909-384-8131 to benefit from budget-friendly rates. Whether a fictitious business name, a name change, a divorce summons, or any other legal or public notice, call West Side Story newspaper 909-384-8131. 909-384-8131. That's 909-384-8131.
All right, we're back, and I want to remind you that if your Volvo is, 211 lower, you probably need to give it a little checkup, and you can take it over to the Volvo doctor. Tom at Allmake is the Volvo doctor, and he's right there on Baseline in Highland, about a half mile off the freeway. Great place to let that Volvo get the attention that it deserves, and it's not going to do anything but make you feel better. So give Tom a call at 909-825-42. If you really want to know, hang on, I'll give it to you in the next break. If you don't want to know, that's good, because I don't need a line over there when I need to run in there and have him tighten up something real quick. So if you want to know, hang on, I'll give you the phone number to Allmake Auto for the Volvo doctor. Speaking of Volvo doctors, we've got mental doctors, we've got educators who are very, very experienced and concerned about what's going on. Let me introduce the Fleetwood family and stop running my mouth. Dr. Homer Fleetwood and his wife Marissa, representing the world as they live in the state of Florida. How you guys doing this morning? Dr. Fleetwood? Marissa? They're in Florida. They're out trying to talk to us about some of the issues in Florida. I'm going to give Eric a minute to try to get them back, but I know what that's all about. We have the power of history. Dr. Fleetwood is, by the way, a history professor. So when you start telling him that, it's going to make our kids feel bad if they don't have, or if you tell them too much truth. Well, I understand. If you're talking about telling your kid, letting your kid know that mom and dad are cheating on each other, well, yeah, that's bad information. We don't want the kids to have that. But I understand that in the state of Florida, Governor DeSatan, is it DeSatan? Or is that just, it's DeSantis, okay. They fired the school principal at a school district because they showed that naked Greek statue, the one of David, with his package showing. How are kids going to learn anatomy about it? I think it was a 6th grade class. But they fired the principal. They straight out fired the principal. So do you want education, or do you want orientation? Do you want, meditate around me? We can't do it like that. So do we have Dr. Fleetwood.
Right here.
God is great. I'm extremely grateful for this high technology that we have access to.
Well, it works when we need it to and where we need it to. Thank goodness.
Well, that's the optimism I'm talking about. That's the grass growing up out of the concrete when I hear my doctor, my associate, my friend, my history professor say, it's there when we need it. And it is. When you're curious enough and when you're furious enough to go find the alternative from the scoop of goofy whoop that they're trying to feed you. Homer, they didn't just give you, 10 pounds of education, and put it on some white bread and say, here, eat this, boy, no problem. You had to go through some things, So
I had to go cross country.
Man, you not just across country, you went across countries. Yeah,
this is true.
This is true. I mean, I don't know when they sent you to Vietnam if they intended for you to come back at all.
Vietnam, Western Europe, East and West Africa, and from every part of the United States. Yes, sir.
Now, don't make it sound like I don't want to make it sound like I'm just, when I say they didn't plan for you to come back. Listen, every general's got, I don't know what they call it, the
aide de camp.
And there's a certain number of people that you expect to die. That's why the generals don't hit the front lines all the time. That guy out on it's just part of the deal. Daddy got to get up and go to work.
Tell the truth.
Mama got to get up and go to work. And sometimes
Yes,
they
sir.
don't. Sometimes they don't get back. But how do we work the situation that they left? Homer, Dr. Fleetwood, I know that education, and you know that education is critical, and I know that when you, as an educator, talk to people around the country and you remind them that you live in Florida, one of the first things they ask you about is how you do it. Or am I making things up?
It's such an interesting story, Wallace. Such a very, very interesting story. And I'll start like Rachel Maddow does with a little known something or another that maybe some people have heard about. It's called Moms for Liberty. Sounds very appealing. You live in the United States. We are the land of liberty. And so an organization called Moms for Liberty seems to be very attractive.
Man, it is.
The only thing is, Moms for Liberty is part of the nationwide effort to put MAGA, right-wing, the ideologies, or people who hold those ideologies, onto local school boards. Trust me.
Yes.
This is a national, not a local problem. Well, actually, it's both. But
just because you don't live in Florida don't mean you're in good shape.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, trust me. There is an organization called, let's see. It's a national school board association. And there are several local school boards that have withdrawn from the National School Board Association because the National School Board Association has been very critical of these local school boards taking over schools. What do we mean by that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, how about hundreds of library books being removed? Not only in one city, but in scores of cities across the country. And if you think that's bad, well, it's gotten to the state level. The state of Florida has passed a bill making organizations like Moms for Liberty in charge of local school boards, but turned it into a bill that passed the Florida legislature, which is why the books have been removed from Florida schools. You know the books that have been removed. I don't need to go through that long list.
That's why. You can't go through the long list at all.
No. And moreover, excuse me.
But you could grab a book and say, like, I Am Martin Luther King. That's one of the books that they banned.
That is.
Yeah.
That is.
Why would
and there's another one called Sparrow or Bird or something, which is about the Holocaust.
Oh
They
yeah.
took that out.
Oh yeah. Oh, I tell you what. That kind of helps. We ain't alone. Go ahead. I don't want to go off into how strong some groups
now,
that have been. Go ahead.
So the local boards have been infiltrated by national organizations at the same time that Congress, at least the House of Representatives, has passed that bill, which has an odd name called the Parents' Bill of Rights Law. The House has passed it, and now it's before the Senate. And the idea is for the right wing of MAGA associates to take over at least the books, the instruction in schools across the country. So it's from the national level to the state level to the local level. All right, you got to stay woke. Now, that word was stolen from us. You know what I mean when I say us? Because you tell a brother, you better stay woke, brother. That word has been stolen, flipped over, and turned to be a bad thing. So when you hear woke, you think about African Americans, LBGT plus, Native Americans, Latinos, and even Asians to a certain extent. You don't think about the average American conservative. No. So that word has been turned
Misused.
over and used in a way that it wasn't meant to in the first place. Moreover, they're using that word, what do they call it? CRT,
Yeah.
critical race theory.
Mm-hmm.
Critical race theory is not taught in one single elementary, middle school, or high school in the whole United States.
Not
That
under.
is a course that is taught to law school students. And so they have tricked people into thinking that critical race theory has something to do with what goes on in the school. That's absolutely absurd. It doesn't happen. It's like putting a 16-year-old driver in an international race car. You know, the ones that go 200 or 300 miles an hour. Please.
But the elements,
absurd.
some of the elements, so we don't get caught over here in the corner. If we talked about Martin Luther King, they would call that critical race theory. Right?
But it's not.
No,
They
well,
call
no,
it
because
like
that's
Yankee do.
yeah,
Stick a
that's
feather in your hat and call it macaroni.
yeah, but like you say, critical race theory is an accumulation of information that ties something together. That's for master students. It's not for, but at the same time, we want young kids to understand the social implications of racism. We want them to understand especially institutional racism, so that we get them to understand that I'm not upset with you, Charles, for sitting next to me but I am upset with the fact that while you and I, Charles, are sitting here in school and we're at the same smart, there's some things that are going to be more of an advantage to you because of the color of your skin than available to me. But
Well, please, I hate to interject, but I have to at this
please
moment.
do that. Please.
For instance, and this is real, and it happened right here. I won't name the school, and I will say it's in Florida, South Florida, but a young lady asked my granddaughter 2 weeks ago, can she call her a nigger? And then my granddaughter responded by saying, well, can I call you a cracker? And lo and behold, my granddaughter was put on 1 day of in-school suspension.
Oh.
Absolutely nothing happened to the other little girl, and I suppose you can imagine who or what she was. It's that way. It's so subtle. You wouldn't recognize it unless you knew that it was institutionalized.
But that, and that's, oh my God, that's very subtle. Praise the Lord for your granddaughter's understanding of the fact is that, if there's nighttime, there's daytime. I don't mind being this if you don't mind being that. So.
Hello.
Yeah. So the problem is the solution, in that the problem has been that we've been at this point, despite the apparent lack of CRT and restrictions on learning. Remember when it was against the law for black folks to read and write, to be taught to read and write, and they would penalize anybody
What's going on with the school boards now is exactly parallel to what you just said.
Very
exactly
good.
Parallel.
And my point is,
in one middle school here in Florida, not one, but several, all of the history books have been removed from the classroom.
See, the point I want to make is we've been through this. This is not a new movie. It's just a new director. We got the same characters, and we're making the same moves, and we always create our scene after the camera goes off, because they never record our scene. It's never in the history, but somehow we know that we're successful contributors to society, both locally, nationally, and internationally. And that's because we've been around. I don't know, it's that new technology thing. Whenever they open up more technology and we're able to see more, what do we see? We see rocks that some people lay down, and we see statues and things that represent infrastructure for something else. Well, black folk, indigenous folk, people of color have, held America and the rest of the world together despite. And so now, as we are here with this threat, that I'll have to say, I met some young people, Papa, you're wasting a lot of time trying to, turn them guys around. We already got a new direction, and we're headed that way. You might want to hop in. Well, no, we've always been able to secure our money. We've always had good social structure, but I don't want to leave them behind. Matter of fact, the radio station says, leave no listener behind. And we have always had successful black folk. And under the pressure of hardcore, can I call you a nigger? Situations. My thing now is, as we press and understand that we are not out of that pressure, and when I say we, I mean white people that I know and that you know are just as disappointed and upset and concerned about this as they could be. Our alternatives.
Well, it's about, if you'll excuse me, it's about liberal values, i.e. values that are not colored by a political viewpoint, but that are essentially based upon the scientific method. Now, it's this Moms for Liberty business. You might think, how can this one little Moms for Liberty group affect nearly all of the school boards in Florida? Well, bottom line, it's being financed.
Yes.
Financed by the likes of Rick Scott. You can look it up.
Money.
And then when you look at the national organization that is backing up or putting forth that bill that is before the Senate right now, it's backed up by these large right-wing centered around the Koch brothers group of people who are trying to conservatize or how can I put it, demote or lower or overwhelm the call for liberty, the call for a conscious, scientifically based education here in the United States. Why? Well, that's easy to find out. And if you can't figure out what's going on, remember these two words: school boards. Starts with the children.
You know, one of the first school boards that made sense to me was the one my dad held. You go into school and you're going to learn. I don't care what they do. This is what you've got to do. And Dr. Fleetwood, I know you the same. And I know that we have to battle, we have to battle at the front lines. But there's
all of it.
Yeah,
and
but
the front line is in the voting booth.
Well,
all the way down to the bottom of the ballot where you vote for your school board.
I'm going to agree.
Be careful who you put in charge of your school board now.
And be careful whose soap you're buying, because that soap money that you're buying and that pillow money you're buying may be pointing bullets back at you.
Yes, sir.
So you're right. The finances rule the election process. That's the first thing we've let go wrong. And now we've let the election process allow us to think that, well, that's the flow. If you win the election, it's okay. Oops, only in some cases. But school boards, locally, local politics, that's what we're all about. And we say so when we get national folk into the local thing, they say one thing and another. Well, we've had national people help push the issues that we think are good. So, I don't want to get stuck with saying, if it's good for me, they can't do it. If it's my method, you got to copyright, trademark, and do all those different things. In the world of real business, you can outrun me with your trademarks, but you can't outrun me with my selling. And the same thing with our teaching our kids. They're going to put barriers up, but we're going to swim around them, under them, and over them. And we've been doing that, and our mental health demonstrates that. Because, we tend to be a little stressed out. How long ago was it that we were described as the people who wear a mask? Okay, so
Black skin, white mask.
well, they confuse it with the COVID. But the idea being that I act one way in front of one group and another way in another. Well, how sincere is that? I'll tell you what. Show me some teenagers that act the same way in front of their mama as they do with their friends, and I'll show you some teenagers that ain't going to get to go out no more. Okay, so everybody has demonstrated their ability to discipline themselves, to make choices, and this, that, and the other. And I'm saying and asking you, and I have a young man who works for the county mental health department, for the sake of our mental health, to be able to continue to guide our kids to these successful routes, because we've been able to do that despite, and sometimes because of the pressure of resistance that is out there. Where are we with some solution to remind these parents that, this ain't new. What do you do when the public school is no longer able to be the tremendous cushion that you used to have? And I'd like to go back and describe exactly when in those places, where and whenever did we have that cushion where it wasn't had the pins backwards and sticking black kids and brown kids in the butt, as opposed to being a privileged flow like. But then poor white kids, I don't know, they don't want to make this a class thing, but I think it is. I really think it is. Dr. Fleetwood.
There are places where race and class do cross. And for the most part, when they do, you're going to find class being the dominant element so far in the world. However, each individual is going to be responsible to go in that voting booth, look at the whole list of candidates for every position, and choose the ones whose platforms are more in line with your way of thinking. That means you have to do a little research before you vote. That's not asking too much. It is determining what kind of education and who will educate your children.
That's true. But I know that we'll ask, men don't ask too many directions, but I'm told. But we'll ask directions. We'll ask, who should I vote for? And we found out that people will give you phony directions. You remember when you were a kid? Give you phony directions on purpose and give you a list of people to vote for that is, their choice. But since you ask them who should they vote for, now their choice becomes your choice. Because, like you said, you didn't have another level of research. But Dr. Fleetwood, the people who are without resources, the people who are on a survival syndrome, they have to kind of, and I'm saying they, well, should be saying we have to depend on more accurate relating of information and communicating of what's really critical.
There's a question for you, sir.
Okay, please.
Do you have a cell phone?
Yes, I do.
There's hardly a person you can find that doesn't have a cell phone, even if they make $0 a week or month. That cell phone is the doorway to all the information you could possibly want.
And that doorway is so important, not just to that guy over there who can afford it. It's so important to the people who make money off of the information flow on the cell phone that they will give you one now.
Ooh, yeah.
Ooh-wee. So, is that...
I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying, so they'll give you one. Is that to facilitate, your access to the world, like they say? Well, it does facilitate that, but it certainly allows them to put a chip in your back pocket, follow you around, tell you what to do. Use the data. You don't have to buy anything, because data about people who don't buy is just as important as data about people who do buy.
Just have to do the research.
And did I say Dubai?
Research is not, just because it sounds like it's complicated, it's not.
No.
You could Google or whatever sort of platform you want, find out about the candidates for every office that's on the ballot. You have weeks to look that up before the election. And when you do that, you are really casting your ballot. It's not just voting, it's voting for whom. Who is going to put forth what type of platform.
Got to throw a rock through the window again. This artificial intelligence will allow them to make a movie that makes you think, dog, I forgot I was there. I don't remember I did that. That's how powerful they are. And so we're at the same time we talk about depending on things, other things that represent others. We find that there is a trick in it. Now, talking to you, gathering up our public school. Public school is very good to most people, but it's not good enough for most people of the, should I say, Jewish heritage. Why do I say that? Because they put their kids in school on Saturday to do a little more cultural enrichment. Now,
Yes.
if we understand that, as we do, that our kids are not doing as well in school, statistically, in terms of the standard that they set up and that we agree to participate in by sending our kids to school, if we know that's lacking, do we continue to run the school boards? Because even though we may be represented ethnically on that school board, we got to understand that, everybody does not feel inside or act inside the way that you would typically expect them to. And mainly it's sometimes because of who's paying for them. So if you are a candidate and you're, in your local school district, maybe as we were fighting racism and educational terrorism in the past, maybe the NAACP would help local school boards. Now, we did that.
Yeah.
Yes, we did that. And that was from a national sense. So we can't be tripping because Moms for Misery, is that what you called them? Oh, no, Moms for Liberty.
Moms for Liberty.
I knew it. Misery and liberty, those things kind of rhyme together. Those people are going to have to eat themselves because we can't eat them. They're too big. They're being fed by that money system. And as soon as we get consumed fighting them, they'll get another name, another game, and another place to play it because the money people are in a position to keep slipping and sliding, mind gliding over all kind of crazy stuff.
It's almost like whack-a-mole.
It is. And that's the idea, to keep you busy, being busy, doing nothing, so that they can be casual and small about doing their something. Now, who is there? The people with money. Don't be silly.
Yeah.
There are people with money. Watch the people that grew up right next to you, having the same miseries as you, and I don't mean those of us who made it through college and found a job that kind of justified this, that, and the other. I'm talking about the people we worry about being left behind. Now, you take me one of those people and put them next to somebody else, I'm gonna be able to show you that inadequate access. Bullying, social bullying creates, and when we look at it, we'll say, well, golly, statistically, why are so many black and brown people in this? They're not even a major part of the population. But if we talk about some of the mental health issues and physical health issues, they're, instead of being 12%, they're 22%. Instead of with birth rate mortality, 2-to-1. Now, at what level are we at 2-to-1 over white people unless we did a misery check? It's not. So we can't keep going back to the same school board, because when they see that we're going to that school board, they're going to take it over. When they see that, we can trust the mayor, they're going to take it over. When they say that, no, we're going to go over to the Department of Justice, they're going to take it over. But meanwhile, there's people getting wealthy, black folk, brown folk, educating their children anyway, and having an international attitude that is matched by international access. There are best practices. There are things that people are doing to keep their children moving. My concern is, can we spread that jelly and over on another piece of bread? When you spread your jelly on the bread, there's always a little left over. You could have put it on another piece of bread. Are we contributing enough to that group of people who are bound to be left behind if we don't do something for them? Because I think that despite the imagery, that, we can, by saving each other, we have the opportunity to really grow and do something. We talk about them financing these elections. Well, when we go look at who's financing that, if we get right down to it, we are financing a lot of our own opposition by, you say we vote on November, I say we vote every damn day. I say that every time you pick up anything in the store, anytime you decide what kind of car you're going to drive, I used to was going to run get a Tesla. You find that you are supporting not just your economic curiosity, you making somebody else rich, and that's fine. But what do they do with those riches? Are they going to send somebody to come take my car? Are they going to send somebody to finance it so that somebody else is willing to come steal my car? Or are they just doing all? You can't figure all of that stuff out, but you can figure out when it hurts. And so our money, tracking our money, seems to me probably a little bit more important, not more important, but maybe at this point more effective than tracking the school board.
Follow the money.
Lead the money, yeah. But see, following the money means, let's check with it after we spend it. And you're right, you got to do that research. But I think that with all of these great organizations that we have, fraternities, sororities, churches, where do they put their money? What do they do? What do they command that money to be used and spent with? Now, we just saw the banks failed, and when the banks failed, before the banks were allowed to truly fail, the other banks that said, y'all about to ruin my reputation. They put up enough money to keep this thing together. It's trying to tell you banking is cool. Don't you worry about a thing. We got your back.
Well, I got the word that over in Nigeria, at the end of this week, near the end of this week, that the banks weren't issuing dollars, or a limited amount of dollars, that the banks in Nigeria were a little shaky. This banking crisis is not small.
No, it isn't, because when you give your money to somebody else to handle, the International Money Fund, when you depend on that, when you have leaders that decide that it's okay to give away the resources and let other people take them out of the country, we say that's just really ignorant of those people in Africa. No, I'm talking about California. I'm talking about the oil. All of the oil that we don't get to put in our cars in California is because it's being exported. All of the gasoline that we put in our cars is so high because it's being imported. I live in California. I pay my taxes. I do not pay my taxes with the idea that it's okay for somebody to come in and take our resources in California, take them and sell them somewhere else in the world, and raise the price of access here locally. Come on, people.
Which reminds me of something. It reminds me of something very important. Who we choose to represent us is who we choose to cut up the money pie at the legislative level.
How many
House
politicians?
Of Representatives, every house, every lower body, in every institution in the United States has a chunk of money that's brought in by taxes that they determine how it's cut up. Where the money goes to the fire department, the school boards, the police department, the parks department, et cetera, et cetera. Who you elect makes a whole lot of difference.
And who you elect somehow, despite being poor when they went in, make a whole lot of money. Now, that may not show up in their salary.
Back to follow the money.
There you go. There you go. So I don't know what the best practices are for, following the money, except maybe that's something we can do as a project. Maybe, I know that someone has checked the donations and they have an idea and they know directly who's funding much of the money. And am I in favor of a boycott? Nah, I'm more in favor of a man-cott. I think okay, I don't think we should blanket everybody, but I think we should pick the biggest villain and knock him down and then move on to the next one. And I think if we do it that way, it becomes a class action and not just some ethnic action.
Yeah.
And it's important to go ahead, please.
I noticed something along the way when you hear the word conspiracy, which has been touted by people on both sides of the political line. I immediately translate that to a concert of interests. And you can follow the concert of interests just by looking them up. Who's supporting this? Who's financing that? It's right there in your computer, in your telephone.
You're scaring me. You're scaring me because I'm old enough to, I'll say yeah when you talk about the ease and access to the computer and use of my cell phone. But, you said, Wallace, do you have a cell phone? And I said, yeah. I said, Wallace, you know how to use it? Then I start going, yeah. And then we talk about what can I do with it? Well, I can make some phone calls. I can take some pictures. I can get on my email. But I'm at the airport last night, and they said something about get the Delta app because my plane was late. I missed my my continuing flight, and I'm standing in line. I'm trying to be, meditate, deep breathing. Don't shoot nobody.
Calm
don't
down.
kill. Calm down. And this lady, and I don't know the name. Her name was Lethal Neethel. And I say lethal neethal because she explained why she said lethal will help me remember the neethal part. But the main thing is she was there helping not only the friend that she had, but she was helping other people in line find their little flights and stuff. And she said, well, have them try this and have them try that. And I said, wow. And then she said, oh, and punch that little button over there. And I punched the button and all kind of stuff flew up. My point is, yeah, I got a cell phone, but I don't know what I'm doing with it. I have local people here, and I need to call Miss Mackey. I'm sorry I haven't called you. I got to call you today. We have other people who are senior as I am, and they, if we could set up some classes so they can know more about using their cell phones, because the world is now telling you that if you can't get it on mobile, I don't know if we should worry about you. And I say that because if you can't get them on mobile, how do you know to even worry about them?
That's when you have to go to the library.
Well, that's when you have to go to the library. But, then once again, as students who have paid their money and their tuition to come in and listen to the advice or that they set up in my class as my consultant because they paid for it and they want to hear it, we're talking about people who can't pay. We're talking, and those are the people that we're saying should not be left behind. And that's where we as warriors and soldiers and field marshals have to remember that as we are headed to the bank or headed away from the bank, and we understand that we've got a few things working for us, that we need to, try to figure out a successful way to be sure others are not stuck in the muck of those who don't,
So are you suggesting that each one teach one?
You know what? Why don't we start an attitude like that? I think you just invented something there, Scrap. Oh, I didn't mean to bring. But yes, this is what I mean. Our cliches represent traditional movements of ask your mother, right?
Hello.
Okay. Miss Jones.
In this case, though, it might be Mama, ask your son, or daughter, ask your children, because they know.
And I tell you what, if you got a problem with the TV remote, the kids at home, they know how to do the computer. They know how to. A young man helped me get on MARTA while I was in Atlanta. I mean, I could have done it. It would have taken me 15 minutes, but he said, and I was out of there in about a minute and a half.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So we have best practices, and our best practices to deal with our not only economic impact, our social impact, our mental health impact. I think that we help all of those things with a little simple help to each other.
So each one teach one.
Each one teach one, and you're going to do that. You're either going to teach one that we are worthy and respectful of each other, or you're going to walk on by and teach one that, hey, man, you need to go somewhere else if you want some help.
And then I must say that instead of looking for who shot John and Johnetta, or who's getting ready to fight who, or who's got on that dress that makes him look naked, or this guy was found in a club with a gun, maybe we need to be looking at those issues about where your money goes and where your political choices go.
I think I agree with that. I don't know if we didn't take the whole 55 minutes to get there, but that's what I see as a repetitive solution to problems that have occurred in the past and that we can predict are going to occur in the future. Before we went on that break, devil's trying to grab me and choke me. Before we went on that break, we talked about some of the large, great organizations that we have. And I don't know if we have a credit union, if that's even the point. The point is, though, that we as a group of people spend how many? 1.5 trillion, or is it $2 trillion as consumers?
More than I can count.
As consumers. Now, as good consumers, it didn't take. I mean, we had a common friend named Lonnie McRoyal that he showed me early in life that as a consumer, you can become an entrepreneur. I remember when his nephew wanted to give his nephew a go-kart, so he went out to buy a go-kart, and he was always one to say, well, if I could buy one for that price, what if I bought 5? And he's looking for the price break. And he had a good price break at 10. So instead of buying one go-kart, he bought 10. And when I say he bought 10, if you know my friend Lonnie, he didn't need cash. He had that charming smile and the ability to make you see that you are got to, it's going to be worth it for you. This is where we are. If you want to buy something, if you've got trillions of dollars, maybe we should buy a bulk thing of toilet paper and let our churches and sororities and local groups distribute it and make the money that we're giving it to the stores. Oh, that's really complicated. I know it. And that's what makes an entrepreneur, a cash movement, workable. Because it's complicated, everybody ain't going to do it. So just like I said it there, now if Marriott can buy their toilet paper from the same place, so can the AKAs, the Alphas, the Masons, the Elks, the FBN, right. the certain churches, and if they got a problem distributing, that problem is not a problem. That's an economic opportunity for someone. So as we look at our acquiescence to the future problem, let's don't do that. Let's look at the fact that we've been handling every ball that they throw at us. We're hitting over 300.
No doubt.
No doubt. And I'm not afraid of the game, and I ain't mad at the gamers. I'm more concerned about the people who are sitting in the stands who think that they're only sitting in the stands. Everybody's in this game. Everybody's got to keep score or a scorekeeper. The prevalence of this resistance to education is the same as y'all take your butts to the back door. No, we don't serve your kind. We fought our way through all of that. Same thing with education. Our black kids are not getting this. The brown kids are not getting that. But we see brilliance come out of our schools every year. So somebody is able to do it. We have to stick together, be the glue, and keep on with it. Dr. Fleetwood, tell Marissa, I'm sorry, we did this man thing again. We'll have to.
Well, she just missed it. I'm sorry about that. Okay. I think she just came in. I'm in the other room with the door closed.
Okay, well, that's what we did when Jimi Hendrix came by the house. Sat the women over there. We did, But we're out of time. This is the quickest hour on radio. I even skipped over some commercials. I am so happy, to be able to talk with you and share your wisdom.
Mr. Al. We could be calling you Dr. Al.
Well, they used to when I was doing the wrong thing. We'll be right back next week under two circumstances. If the good Lord is willing and the creek don't rise. Dr. Fleetwood, thank you. Love you, your family, and love what you did for us today. I hope I'm going to study so I can get an A when you give me a test on this thing. All right. Anthony, thank you for being here.
KCAA Loma Linda.